But it's worse than that. It's gaming in a sales tax that has a very narrow base in and of itself. It applies to relatively few things. So, some of the proposals that are out, so you have to fix that first. You have to fix that. So, one way to fix it is to expand the number of things that the sales tax covers. The other possible solution is to put in a third leg of the stool, as the cliche goes, whether it's a net profits tax or a gross receipts tax or some other form of taxing business. No one's going to go for an income tax. That would take a constitutional change and would be suicide on behalf of anyone who proposed it. So I think expanding the sales tax base makes some sense. I actually think it would make some sense to put in some kind of a business tax as a third leg. So once you've solved that problem, then you have the debate. And this is the tougher part of the whole question, which is what kind of state do we really want to be? And I've been talking about this for years. As I mentioned, there is no culture in this state that really cares about the fact that that education is funded at a pathetic level. There's no culture in the state that values it. And people wonder why there's no economic diversification. And then you hear a lot, oh, we can't pass a tax increase because then no one's going to come here and diversify the economy. As if that's the reason they're not going to come here. Why do you think businesses don't move here? Why do you think families don't move here? So you got to get the value in there. You got to get people to actually value that, and then you got to say to yourselves, how do we want to treat social services? People talk about the low levels of Medicaid here, but it's not just that. We have a narrow number of people that we allow to qualify for Medicaid, much narrower than most states. Is that the kind of state we want to be? We want to prevent people who need that kind of assistance from getting it? So far we have been. So far we have been. That's the kind of state we are. Do we want that? Let's have that debate. Let's have that debate. What about the roads? How we fund our transportation infrastructure? Let's have that debate. So there's two separate questions to be addressed. And listen, there's going to be more revenue put in. But if the past is prologue, what they're going to do is steal money from local governments, call things fees that are really taxes, come up with some kind of crazy scheme, as they did in 2003 when they finally passed that tax increase, which is cobbled together 13 unrelated tax increases and say it's a plan. They care more about the number than the method in 2003. Much greater problem now. And you have essentially, except for a few people, most people not telling the truth about what the problem really is, including the candidates for governor. And when Brian Sandoval goes up to give his first State of the State speech, he's going to have to do one of two things. He's either going to have to gut this state, or he's going to have to give a speech that begins, what I meant to say. And either way, that's not a good solution, is it? But that's what's going to happen.
Okay, what do you think about the news? I got Carolyn on the hot seat here. Clark County's new superintendent.
And my guess is that it will take longer than 120 days. There should always be a special session to do that, because if you don't do it in a special session restricted to that topic, it does become tangled up with other topics and becomes the subject of horse trading on other issues that are completely unrelated to it. It should be handled in a separate session, but it won't be. So it's going to be ugly. It's going to be very ugly because there's a lot at stake. I think it was Carolyn who mentioned the expansion of the legislature. That's one thing that's going to be in there. You're going to have a 4th congressional district. There's going to be a lot of controversy over that, how that is drawn. And then you're going to have every other district in the state, you know, which everyone wants to get their little neighborhoods into and out of and all that kind of thing. So it should be handled in a separate session, and it won't be.
Okay, we got to Carolyn.
What do you think the turnout's going to be?
Not as high as it should be. You know, I can't guess on what it's going to be. Larry Lomax has better estimates of those kinds of things than I do, but I think it'll be interesting to watch. Today, as all you know, is the first day of early voting. It'll be interesting to see if early voting is the turnout is higher this year than in the past. My guess is it will be. And I'll tell you why I think it will be. I think there's a lot of people who want to go out and get their vote in the U.S. Senate race taken care of. That's why I believe it's going to be very high early voting turnout.
And I think they'll do that so that they can tell people who are calling, I've already voted, leave me alone,
No one likes me. The ones in downtown Las Vegas have been very, very controversial. So a guy named Kermit Waters who has been on the other side of a lot of those cases, passed, got an initiative qualified and passed, but some people in government thought that it went too far and would really limit their ability to develop in their jurisdiction. So Kermit Waters worked with Bruce Woodbury, who was the leader of those thinking that maybe it went too far, to try to moderate some of it, and they both agreed to put a new question on the ballot which will protect property rights, this is the argument, but also give government the ability to, in certain cases, use the power of eminent domain. The big problem has been giving land from one private person to another private person, as opposed to government taking it over for a public purpose. So the compromise was to limit the former but allow the latter. How's that? Not bad. Not even a lawyer. Go ahead, Peggy.
Hey, John. You know, I was just telling somebody this morning, when I talked to my husband yesterday who was filling out his absentee ballot, and the only ballot question that I've seen anything about, and that's 2 commercials on TV, is for question number 1. You know, and I'm one of those people that think that we ought to do totally away with ballot initiatives and ballot questions and ballot propositions, because I don't think they're the voice of the people anymore. I think that if it's something controversial, it's spurred by money. And I look at that, and here we're not hearing anything, and people are going to the ballot, and they're either not going to do anything, or they're going to do yes or no, and not know why they're doing yes or no. I mean, it's even worse than the judges on the ballot. Most people know nothing about, unless you have the opportunity to be at places like this all the time and meet them. And so I think that, you know, there's got to be some change in our system, so that people are going, you know, it's aggravating that people are going to the ballot boxes not knowing what the hell they're doing.
As usual, Peggy didn't have a question.